Good morning, Olive, Arlo, and Frank. Early morning. I haven't spoken to anybody. Your grandmother's still in bed. So I had no idea what my voice would sound like. But this isn't about my voice. This morning, it's about Yertle the Turtle and Other Stories by Dr. Seuss. And there's a bunch of turtles going across little tiny hills, I guess. There's Yertle. So it says that this came out in 1950 originally. That was 3 years before I was born. So I was going in order based on this list that I had. And apparently the list is not in order, so. And I'm not going to get into it that much. But this book is for the Bartletts of Norwich, Vermont, and for the SAG Masters of Cincinnati, Ohio. On the faraway island of Salamisond, Yertle the Turtle was king of the pond. And there he is watching a whole bunch of other turtles in the pond. It was clean, it was neat, the water was warm, there was plenty to eat. The turtles had everything turtles might need, and they were all happy, quite happy indeed. They were, until Yertle, the king of them all, decided the kingdom he ruled was too small, and we see that he's sitting there like the thinker, which is a famous statue by Rodin. And there's a Rodin museum in Philadelphia. There's a thinker statue there, but it's not the only one in the world. So I don't know which one is the original one. And he's thinking, and he's going, I want more. And people are like that. They're not happy with what they have. I'm ruler, said Yertle, of all that I see, but I don't see enough. That's the trouble with me. With this stone for a throne, I look down on my pond, but I cannot look down on the places beyond. This throne that I sit on is too low down. It ought to be higher, he said with a frown. If I could sit high, how much greater I'd be. What a king. I'd be ruler of all I could see. So Yertle the Turtle lifted his hand, and Yertle the Turtle King gave a command. He ordered 9 turtles to swim to his stone, and using these turtles, he built a new throne. So he's sitting on top of 9 turtles. He made each turtle stand on one another's back, and he piled them all up in a 9 turtle stack. And then Yertle climbed up. He sat down on the pile. What a wonderful view. He could see most a mile. Silly turtle. All mine, Yertle cried. Oh, the things I now rule. I'm king of a cow, and I'm king of a mule. I'm king of a house, and what's more beyond that, I'm king of a blueberry bush and a cat. And Olive, you don't have blueberries, I don't think, at your house, although they certainly grow in areas like New Orleans. So you may, at one point in time, have your mom, she's the gardener in the family, planting them. But Arlo, you have tons of blueberries, and you're 4 years old now, 4.5. Last year you went around and ate blueberries and grapes and other things that your dad has there. And both of you guys have cats, although there's one cat at your house, which I've named Beelzebub, and um, and Olive, there's two cats. I can't remember their names right now. They start with an M, and they have to do with some cartoon movie. I'm Yertle the Turtle, oh marvelous me, for I am the ruler of all that I see. And there's the cat and the mule and the cow and the house. And all through the morning he sat there up high, saying over and over, a great king am I. So he's saying that, but look at the looks on these turtles' faces. They're like doing a lot of work to keep him up there. Until long about noon, then he heard a faint sigh. What's that? Snapped the king, and he looked down the stack, and he saw at the bottom a turtle named Mac. So here's Mac the turtle. Just a part of his throne, and his plain little turtle. And this plain little turtle looked up and he said, Beg your pardon, King Yertle. I've pains in my back and my shoulders and knees. How long must we stand here, your majesty? Please. So he wants to go on break. Silence! And look, he's yelling. Silence. The king of the turtles barked back. I'm king and you're only a turtle named Mac. Mac the turtle. Mac is backing down. You stay in your place while I sit here and rule. I'm king of a cow and I'm king of a mule. And he's not really, because the king of those things is whatever people live in that house. A king of a house and a bush and a cat. But that isn't all. I'll do better than that. My throne shall be higher, his royal voice thundered. So pile up more turtles. I want about 200. That just sounds crazy. Turtles, more turtles, he bellowed and brayed, and the turtles way down in the pond were afraid. And to bray is, sometimes when you write poetry, you fit words in that don't necessarily belong there. I think braying is what a donkey does when it goes, yee-haw, yee-haw. I think that's braying. I'd have to look it up. They trembled, they shook, but they came, they obeyed. From all over the pond they came swimming by dozens, whole families of turtles with uncles and cousins, and all of them stepped on the back of poor Mac. One after another they climbed up the stack. So the way this should have happened is the turtles that were there originally should have been at the very top. They should have been getting off and letting a new turtle get there at the bottom. But that's not. This guy just wants to be the king. And all these books are really about adults. They're not about whatever it is that they're writing about, usually animals or boys. They're, they're about adults and people doing stupid things in their life. And this is a stupid thing. Then Yertle the Turtle was perched up so high he could see 40 miles from his throne in the sky. Hooray, shouted Yertle, I'm king of the trees, I'm king of the birds, and I'm king of the bees. I'm king of the butterflies, king of the air. Ah me, what a throne, what a wonderful chair. I'm Yertle the Turtle, oh marvelous me, for I am the ruler of all that I see. And he's not. He's not the ruler of all of these seas. He was the ruler of that pond full of turtles because he was the biggest turtle, and they were okay with it. But he has pride. But he's not in charge of the birds and the bees and stuff like that. Uh-oh. There's Mac. There's Mac right there, and it looks like he's sweating. This turtle's sweating. This one's sweating. Then again from below, in the great heavy stack, came a groan from the plain little turtle named Mac. Your Majesty, please, I don't like to complain, but down here below, we are feeling great pain. I know up on top you are seeing great sights, but down at the bottom, we too should have rights. We turtles can't stand it, our shells will all crack. Besides, we need food, we are starving, groaned Mac. Uh-oh. Mac's a rebel. You hush up your mouth, howled the mighty King Yertle. You've no right to talk to the world's highest turtle. I rule from the clouds, over land, over sea. There's nothing, no nothing that's higher than me. And we see that these turtles up here are sweating too. But while he was shouting, he saw with surprise that the moon of the evening was starting to rise up over his head in the darkening skies. What's that? Shouted Yertle. Say, what is that thing that dares to be higher than Yertle the king? I shall not allow it. I'll go higher still. I'll build my throne higher. I can, and I will. I'll call some more turtles. I'll stack 'em to heaven. I need about 5,607. He's already got 200 turtles stacked up. But as Yertle the Turtle King, as Yertle the Turtle King lifted his hand, and started to order and give the command, that plain little turtle below in the stack, that plain little turtle whose name was just Mac, decided he'd taken enough, and he had. And that plain little lad got a little bit mad. And that plain little Mac did a plain little thing. He burped, and his burp shook the throne of the king. And there he is, burp, B-U-R-P, with an exclamation point. And you can see the burp there. So this is quite a burp. Uh-oh. And look at them looking like, whoa. Yertle the Turtle, the king of the trees, the king of the air and the birds and the bees, the king of a house and a cow and a mule. Well, that was the end of the Turtle King's rule. For Yertle, the king of the Salamasand, fell off his high throne and fell plunk in the pond. Uh-oh. Today the great Yertle, that marvelous he, is king of the mud. That's all he can see. And the turtles, of course, all the turtles are free as turtles and maybe all creatures should be. So that's the end of Yertle. Now this is Gertrude McFuzz. And Arlo, your great-grandmother's name was Gertrude, which I think just if you take the D out, that's how she spelled her name. Gertrue. So that's your grandmother McConnell, who lives up in Pennsylvania, who was my wife, and who was your dad's mother. That's her mother. So it's your maternal grandmother, Gertrude. But this is Gertrude McFuzz. There once was a girl bird named Gertrude McFuzz, and she had the smallest plain tail ever was. One droopy feather, that's all that she had. And oh, that one feather made Gertrude so sad. So here's her tail. She's got one feather, but look, this bird's got crazy feathers. For there was another young bird that she knew, a fancy young birdie named Lallaloo. And instead of one feather behind, she had two. Poor Gertrude. Whenever she happened to spy Miss Lallaloo flying by in the sky, she got very jealous. She frowned and she pouted. Then one day she got awfully mad and she shouted, "This just isn't fair. I have one, she has two. I must have a tail just like Lallaloo." Be careful what you wish for. So this is another one where somebody wants something that they don't have, and in the last one it was the kingdom to expand. The turtle went from being the king, well respected of this pond full of turtles, to decided he wanted more and more and more and more power, and it wound up at the end just taking him down, literally taking him down. So she flew to her uncle, a doctor named Dake, whose office was high in a tree by the lake, and she cried, "Uncle Doctor, oh please, do you know of some kind of a pill that will make my tail grow?" "Tut, tut," said the doctor, "such talk, how absurd. Your tail is just right for your kind of a bird." So the medical opinion is your tail's just fine. Then Gertrude had tantrums. She raised such a din that finally her uncle, the doctor, gave in. And he told her just where she could find such a pill on a pillberry vine on the top of the hill. "Oh, thank you," chirped Gertrude McFuzz, and she flew right straight to the hill where the pillberry grew. Yes, there was the vine, and as soon as she saw it, she plucked off a berry. She started to gnaw it. It tasted just awful, almost made her sick, but she wanted that tail, so she swallowed it quick. Then she felt something happen. She felt a small twitch, as if she'd been tapped down behind by a switch. And Gertrude looked round and she cheered. It was true. 2 feathers, exactly like Lallaloo. Then she got an idea. "Now I know what I'll do. I'll grow a tail better than Lallaloo." So it's the same theme This bird wants more than she has. And so she thought she wanted the same tail as this other bird. But now that she has it, it's like, no, I want more than that. These pillows that grow feathers are working just fine, so she nibbled another one off of the vine. She felt a new twitch, and then Gertrude yelled, "Wee! Miss Lala has only just two. I have three." When Lala Lee Lou sees this beautiful stuff, she'll fall right down flat on her face, sure enough. I'll show her I'll show her who's pretty, I certainly will. Why, I'll make my tail even prettier still. She snatched at those berries that grew on the vine, so now she's eaten a whole bunch of them. She gobbled down 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And she didn't stop eating, young Gertrude McFuzz, till she'd eaten 3 dozen. That's all that there was. So 36. 36 berries. Oh my word, look at her tail feathers. Then the feathers popped out with a zang, with a zing. They blossomed like flowers that bloom in the spring, all fit for a queen, what a sight to behold. They sparkled like diamonds and gumdrops and gold, like silk, like spaghetti, like satin, like lace. They burst out like rockets all over the place. They waved in the air and they swished in the breeze, and some were as long as the branches of trees. And still they kept growing. They popped and they popped, until long about sundown, when finally they stopped. And now, giggled Gertrude, the next thing to do is to fly right straight home and show Lala Lee Lou. And when Lala sees these, why, her face will get red, and she'll let out a scream, and she'll fall right down dead. Well, that's a horrible thing. So what do you think is happening here? Then she spread out her wings to take off from the ground, but with all of those feathers she weighed 90 pounds. She yanked and she pulled and she let out a squawk, but the bird couldn't fly, couldn't run, couldn't walk. So this bird is stuck. Got a lot of tail feathers, but stuck. And all through that night, she was stuck on the hill, and Gertrude McFuzz might be stuck up there still if her good Uncle Dake hadn't heard the girl yelp. He rushed to her rescue and brought along help. So there's other birds involved here. To lift Gertrude up almost broke all their beaks, and to fly her back home it took almost 2 weeks. And then it took almost another week more to pull out those feathers. My, Gertrude was sore. So it turns out that she did have the right tail after all. And finally, when all the pulling was done, Gertrude behind her again had just one. That one little feather she had as a starter. And now that's enough, because now she is smarter. So this young lady learned her lesson. The big brag. So there's a rabbit sitting here. The rabbit felt mighty important that day on top of a hill in the sun where he lay. He felt so important up there on that hill that he started in bragging, as animals will. And he boasted out loud as he threw out his chest, "Of all the beasts in the world, I'm the best." On land and on sea, even up in the sky, no animal lives who is better than I. So he's bragging. And now bear's going to eat him. Yeah, there's a bear right there. What's that? Growled a voice that was terribly gruff. And my voice this morning is terribly gruff. Now, why do you say such ridiculous stuff? The rabbit looked down and he saw a big bear. I'm the best of the beasts, said the bear. And so there. You're not, snapped the rabbit. I'm better than you. Pooh, the bear snorted. Again, I say pooh. And I know a joke about a bear and a rabbit, but I can't tell it. When you're grown up, ask me. You talk mighty big, Mr. Rabbit, that's true. But how can you prove it? Just what can you do? Thought the rabbit. Now what can I do? Thought and he thought. Then he finally said, Mr. Bear, do you see these two ears on my head? My ears are so keen and so sharp and so fine. No ears in the world can hear further than mine. Humph, the bear grunted. He looked at each ear. You say they are good, said the bear with a sneer, but how do I know just how far they can hear? I'll prove, said the rabbit. My ears are the best. You sit there and watch me. I'll prove it by test. Then he stiffened his ears till they both stood up high and pointed straight up at the blue of the sky. He stretched his ears open as wide as he could. Shh, I am listening, he said as he stood. He listened so hard that he started to sweat, and the fur on his ears and his forehead got wet. For 7 long minutes he stood, then he stirred, and he said to the bear, Do you know what I heard? Do you see that far mountain? It's 90 miles off. There's a fly on that mountain, and I just heard him cough. Now the cough of a fly, sir, is quite hard to hear when he's 90 miles off, but I heard it quite clear. So you see, bragged the rabbit, it's perfectly true that my ears are the best, so I'm better than you. And you see the bear's like, ooh. But how do we know that he really heard that? The bear, for a moment, just sulked as he sat, for he knew that his ears couldn't hear things like that. This rabbit, he thought, made a fool out of me. Now I've got to prove that I'm better than he. No, just eat him. That'll prove it. So he said to the rabbit, You hear pretty well. You can hear 90 miles, but how far can you smell? I'm the greatest of smellers, he bragged. See my nose? This nose on my face is the finest that grows. My nose can smell anything, both far and near. With my nose, I can smell twice as far as you hear. So twice as far as 90 miles would be 180 miles. 90 times 2 equals 180. You can't, snapped the rabbit. I can, growled the bear. And he stuck his nose way up high in the air. He wiggled that nose, and he sniffed, and he sniffed. He waggled that nose, and he whiffed, and he whiffed. For more than 10 minutes, he snaff and he snuff. Or he snuff and he snuff. No snaff. He snaff and he snuff. Then he said to the rabbit, I've smelled far enough. All right, said the rabbit. Come on now and tell exactly how far is the smell that you smelled. Oh, I'm smelling a very far smell, said the bear, away past that fly on that mountain out there. I'm smelling past many great mountains beyond, 600 miles more to the edge of a pond. And way, way out there by the pond you can't see is a very small farm. On the farm is a tree. On the tree is a branch. On the branch is a nest, a very small nest where 2 eggs are rest. Two hummingbird eggs, only half an inch long, and hummingbirds are little tiny birds. Arlo, I'm pretty sure that you guys have a hummingbird feeder in front of your house, but I didn't see any hummingbirds when I was there last weekend. But my nose, said the bear, is so wonderfully strong. My nose is so good that I smelled without fail that the egg on the left is a little bit stale. And that is a thing that no rabbit can do. So you see, the bear boasted, I'm better than you. My smeller's so keen that it just can't be beat. What's that? Called a voice from way down by his feet. The bear and the rabbit looked down at the sound, and they saw an old worm crawling out of the ground. Now, boys, said the worm, you've been bragging a lot. You both think you're great, but I think you're not. You're not half as good as a fellow like me. You hear and you smell, but how far can you see? Now I'm here to prove to you big boasting guys that your nose and your ears aren't as good as my eyes. And the little old worm cocked his head to one side, and he opened his eyes, and he opened them wide. And he looked far away with a strange sort of stare, as if they were burning 2 holes in the air. The eyes of the worm almost popped from his head. He stared half an hour till his eyelids got red. That's enough, growled the bear. Tell the rabbit and me, how far did you look, and just what did you see? Well, boys, the worm answered, that look that I took was a look that looked farther than you'll ever look. I looked across the ocean, way out to Japan, for I can see farther than anyone can. There's no one on earth who has eyesight that's finer. I looked past Japan, then I looked across China. I looked across Egypt, then took a quick glance across the 2 countries of Holland and France. Then I looked across England and also Brazil, but I didn't stop there. I looked further still, so I have a feeling I know where this is going, but I'll let you be surprised. And I kept right on looking and looking until I'd looked round the world and right back to this hill. And I saw in this hill, since my eyesight's so keen, the 2 biggest fools that have ever been seen. And the fools that I saw were none other than you, who seem to have nothing else better to do than sit here and argue. Who's better than who? So he looked all the way around the world and then looked back to where he started. He started looking, and we see that that's the earth, and he's looking around it. Then the little old worm gave his head a small jerk, and he dived in his hole and went back to his work. There's these guys. Okay, peace out.